So we'll begin from the first chapter today and see how far we get. So chapter 1, the eternal and temporary dharmas of the Jiva. So now, what is the eternal dharma? We've heard what is not the nitya dharma. Now we want to hear what is pure dharma. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes, within this world, the island of Jambudvip is most excellent. Jambudvip is the principal island where all the material worlds are situated. The different oceans are situated. We're going to post a map on our WhatsApp thread, 2 different maps or 3 different maps, so you can consider this Jambudvip. Jambudvip is not Swagaloka. It's not the upper regions and it's not the lower regions. It's the middle planetary systems. That's where Jambudvip is. In Jambudvip, the land of Bharatvash is imminent, and within Bharatvash, the topmost place is Gauda Bhumi. So now we can interpret that Bharatvash can, in fact, when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, relate to all this planet where we are. But more specifically, Bharatvash means India itself. Krishna only ever appears in India. Why? Because in India, Varnashram has been practiced consistently from the very beginning of creation. So Krishna will only appear in that land where Varnashram has its base and foundation. Even today, that foundation is practically eroded. It's practically not there. Nevertheless, it is there in its remnant form. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada described it like a dead elephant. If you see a dead elephant, it still has tremendous value. It's very powerful. So this remnant is still present. Certainly when we come to the villages in Bharatvash. Actually now, this our president, Mr. Modi, is wanting to change the name of India. He's actually changed it. This is called now Bharatvash, not India anymore. That's the name, the title that of this land. So this is named after Bharat Maharaj. The topmost place is Gauda Bhumi, which is right where we are. Within Gauda Bhumi, the 9-island region of Sri Navadvip Mandal is most distinguished. And in one area of Sri Navadvip Mandal, on the eastern bank of the Bhagirathi River, a beautiful settlement named Sri Godrum is eternally situated. So by the greatest fortune, we're able to be sitting here, beaming out these words of Jaiva Dharma, and we are sitting right in Godrum Dweep. Not only sitting in Godrum Dweep, but we are sitting in Surabhi Kunj, where Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote this sacred scripture. His house is a couple of meters from where I'm speaking, and he wrote this Jaiva Dharma in that place. So particularly, we are begging for his kripa today to broadcast the qualities and greatness of this granta that he's presented to the world at this time. In ancient times, many stalwart practitioners of bhajan lived in the various places of Sri Godrum. It was here that Sri Surabhi, a cow of divine origin, that divine origin, it's interesting because we're making one small booklet now about Surabhi Kunj. So we're having to know just how divine is Surabhi Devi. So actually, Indra, he's not qualified to come in touch with such a transcendental personality as Surabhi Devi. So Lord Brahma, he himself went to Golok, it's described, and petitioned Surabhi Devi to assist Indra in begging forgiveness for trying to murder all the residents of Vrindavan with his Shamanbaka rain clouds. And Surabhi Devi has come from that transcendental world, but it's her Anksa that is presently here. But it's the same basic principle of that transcendental Surabhi Devi. It was here that Sri Surabhi, a cow of divine origin, previously worshipped the Supreme Lord Bhagavan, Sri Gaura Chandra, in her own kunj, a grove shaded with fragrant flowering creepers. At a little distance from this kunja is Pradumnya Kunj. Here, Sri Premdas Paramahamsa Babaji, a Shiksha disciple of Pradumna Brahmachari, the best among the associates of Sri Gaurachandra, now lived in a kutia covered with vines and dense foliage, and spent his time constantly immersed in the divine rapture of bhajan. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is really, truly setting the universal scene here. He's bringing us down through the different levels from Swagaloka. He's bringing us into Jambudvip initially. And now he's brought us into Gauda Bhumi. Now he's brought us into Godram. Not only brought us into Godram, but he's showing us who are our associates here. It's Prem Das Babaji, who's associating with Pradumna Das Brahmachari, who's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj, one of the eternal associates, a very mystical associate of Mahaprabhu, who prepared the road for Mahaprabhu in his mind to travel to Vrindavan. And then he was blocked in his meditation and realized and told all the devotees present, Mahaprabhu will not go to Vrindavan now. The road doesn't proceed further. And he was completely correct. Mahaprabhu couldn't go to Vrindavan after he'd met Sanatana Goswami, who advised him, don't go with such a crowd to Vrindavan. This is not correct. So he went back to Puri and then came through the Jarikanda forest later. But there's many pastimes about Pradumna Brahmachari, constantly immersed in divine rapture of bhajan. So, of course, the question comes, what is bhajan? This will be what is described. Sri Premdas Babaji was a refined scholar and was fully conversant with all the conclusions of the Shastra. He had taken shelter. In other words, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to open up all the conclusions of the Shastra in this. The initial character, so to speak, is described as fully conversant in all Shastra. That means the author, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is fully conversant in all Shastra. And he's going to open this up for us. He had taken shelter of the forest of Godrum with single-minded conviction, knowing it to be non-different in essence from Sri Nandagan. Nandagan, just up the road, is Swananda Sukata Kunj. In Swananda Sukata Kunj, there's a beautiful Shiva Lingam, and that Shiva Lingam is called Nandishwara. That's the name of the lingam. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has even manifested that lingam. He is the one who actually brought that Shiva Lingam to that Swananda Sukata Kunj directly. Now they've made a nice little temple there. Previously it was just sitting off to the side, but now they've made a nice temple of it. So Swananda Sukata Kunj also is the traditional home of Ananga Manjari. That's the name of her place in Radha Kund. So all of these indications are very important for the sadhak to get his bearings, where he's going here. What are the cornerstones, so to speak? Where is Bhaktivinoda Thakur taking us? What is his authenticity? What is the line that he's giving us? This is paramount. We have to always have this line very much defined and clear, because especially today there are so many bogus groups around. Anyone who can speak a little bit fluently, anyone who can quote a few verses, etc., is considered to be Jagat Guru. And we have them all over the place. God men, they call them in India. But what is their authenticity? Here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making no compromise with his lineage and where we are focusing on and talking about, all coming back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami. And now this place is non-different from Nandagan. As a daily routine, Babaji Maharaj chanted 200,000 holy names and offered hundreds of obeisances. If this is Nandagan, I've been living here for a while, and I still don't know exactly the location of Varshana. We know where Radhakund is, we know where Govardhan is, we know so many of the places, but the actual location of Varshana is not celebrated at the moment. It's not like, there's not a signpost saying, oh, this is Varshana. There is a signpost saying this is Nandagan. And in Braj, Varshana is only 7 kilometers from Nandagan. So that Varshana place of Sri Radhika must be close by, but I'm not sure where it is. We can speculate, but I don't know exactly. We need another Mahabhagavat like Jagannath Das Babaji, who came in his basket to the yoga pit and immediately confirmed, yes, this is the yoga pit. So these types of confirmation are necessary to establish the locations of all these. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his mystical dreams, etc., and his mystical experiences, it was revealed to him where all these places are. There's nothing remotely speculative about this. This is all completely conclusive, what he's established as the map of Navadvip. And only he has done that. So, Pradumna Brahmachari, he maintained, no, Paramahamsa Das Babaji were describing, he maintained his existence by accepting alms from the houses of the cowherd men. Whenever he found a spare moment from these activities, he spent his time not in idle gossip, but in reading the book Prema Vivart by Sri Jagannananda, a confidential associate of Sri Gaurasundar. So this Prema Vivart is a very important scripture. Prema Vivart, what does that mean? It means the crooked journey of Prem. Who is Jagadananda? He is Satyabhama in Dwarka. So he has composed this Prema Vivart. It was practically the only book that he composed. And Swarup Damodar questions him, oh, what are you writing? Who are you writing this book for? And Jagadananda is saying at the beginning of this Prema Vivart, I'm just writing it for my own purification. I'm not, so in other words, it's not coated with any type of mood of prachishta or anything of that nature. It's just coming from Jagadananda's heart about what he perceives as the crooked nature of Prem. And of course, he is in his transcendental identity Satyabhama, who is Sri Radhika in Vrindavan. So this is the line where we're again appreciating. At such times, neighboring Vaishnavas gathered and listened with great devotion to Babaji, as Babaji read with tear-filled eyes. And why would they not come to hear? This divine treatise, Prem Vivart, is filled with all the conclusions of rasa, the condensed liquid essence of integrated transcendental emotions. This is immediately he's referencing the stage, the moods or the stages of Ragmarg. He's not going to be describing Vaidhi-marg. He will describe it for our education to understand. In the 20th chapter, he describes clearly what is Vaidhi-marg. All these 64 angas, etc., are described there very clearly. But that's not the principal focus, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur is following the footsteps of Rupa Goswami. And Mahaprabhu has come. Rag Mag Bhakti Loke Karite Prajan. He's come to give this Raganuga Bhakti to the world. He hasn't come to give Vaidhi Bhakti. He hasn't just come to give Bhakti. He's come to give Bhakti Ras. It's phenomenal, the gift of Mahaprabhu, when we consider it properly, how in this most dark age of Kali, this remarkable gift of Raganuga Bhakti has descended to the conditioned souls in such a way, so sweet. We simply have to take this Harinam and hear and read these scriptures by the Dara, by the personalities in this line, and then we will understand the nature of this Raganuga Bhakti, which practically, previous to Mahaprabhu, was not practiced practically at all. It was all Vaidhi Bhakti, Vaidhi Marg. Krishna, he comes, Leela Purushottam. He comes to taste his own Leela. And when he leaves this world, there are many descriptions about his other activities outside of Braj, because the Braj activities are so confidential. They're not broadcast widely. Uddhav, he got some glimpse of that. Only Uddhav. Practically no one else. Akrura, he visited. But no one really got the deepest taste of what is the nature of this ras vichar, this mood of Krishna and the interacting in Madhurya realm, in the realm, the kingdom of Madhurya. Mother Yashoda, for example, this Vatsalya. Queen Kunti is completely bewildered when Mother Yashoda is binding Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the distinction between Raganuga and Vaidhi. In Vaidhi, we are afraid, and it's governed by fear. And our mood is to be afraid of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's described that the fire incinerates out of fear. All the devas are worshipping Vishnu in a mood of fearfulness. They're performing their duties. It's not rag. So this rag is very, very rare. And on the second page, it's describing these integrated transcendental emotions. Moreover, the Vaishnavas were inundated by the waves of Babaji's sweet, resonant voice, which extinguished the venomous fire of sensuality in their hearts like a shower of nectar. Why was it extinguishing the sensuality? Because Babaji is completely off the sensual platform. Therefore, when we hear that sound vibration, then we also will come right off that platform. We used to listen to my Gurudev, and when he would speak, everyone would completely become detached from this material condition because of the sound vibration. One afternoon, having completed his chanting of Sri Harinam, Babaji Mahashai, by the way, means we have Maharaj, that means like a great king. We have Mahatma, which means Atma, a great person. And Mahashai means a tolerant person, an extremely tolerant person. He's able to tolerate the nature of this conditioned world. At the same time, be fully realized as an Uttam Bhagavat, Uttam Bhakta. Babaji Mahashai sat reading Prema Vivart in his bower, shaded by vines of Madhavi and jasmine, and became immersed in an ocean of transcendental emotions. Just then, a mendicant in the renounced order of life approached him, fell at his feet, and stayed prostrated in obeisance for a considerable time. At first, Babaji Mahashai remained absorbed in the bliss of transcendental ecstasy, but after a while, when he returned to external consciousness, he beheld the sannyasi Mahatma lying before him. Considering himself more worthless and insignificant than a blade of grass, Babaji fell in front of the sannyasi and began to weep, exclaiming, "O Chaitanya, O Nityananda, please be merciful upon this fallen wretch." The sannyasi then said, "Prabhu, I am extremely vile and destitute. Why do you mock me like this?" So, Sannyasi Thakur, as his name is going to be revealed, is feeling that he can't comprehend the humility in Prem Das Babaji's heart. Prem Das Babaji was just immersed in the ecstasy of transcendental bliss, and now he's emerged from that bliss, and he's still in the same deeply humbled. Why? In the transcendental world, the sadhak or the siddha knows how magnificent, how extraordinary, wonderful is that world. Therefore, he simultaneously realizes his own material insignificance. So when he emerges from his bhajan, he's fully appreciating his own completely fallen condition. This is the natural mood of any realized siddha. They are completely humble. The sannyasi proceeded to take the dust of Babaji Mahashai's feet upon his head and then sat before him. Babaji Mahashai offered him a seat of banana tree bark and sitting beside him spoke in a voice choked with love. "Prabhu, what service may this worthless person offer you?" So the siddha, the sadhak, pure sadhak, only wants to render service, because service is the symptom of love. Without seva, our life is useless. Always there must be some, at least aspiration for seva, and then Krishna will provide an opportunity for seva. If we fill our days with various activities of seva, and if we don't have the opportunity for direct material seva, then we can take the seva to Sri Nam. seva to the Shastra, seva to the Holy Dharma, seva to the Vaishnavas. We can perform these sevas constantly, and this will keep our progress sharp and steady. Without that seva, we won't progress. The sannyasi set aside his begging bowl and with folded hands began to speak. O Master, I am most unfortunate. I have spent my time in Kashi and other holy places debating the analytical conclusions of the religious texts. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking for us, those souls who are debating in the religious texts, etc., those on the Nirvishesh Brahm platform. He's speaking for us. He's wasted his time, he's saying, debating analytical conclusions of the religious text, such as Sankhya, Patanjali, Nyaya, Vasika, Purva Mimams, and Uttara Mimams, and exhaustively studying the Upanishads and the other Vedanta Shastras. About 12 years ago, I accepted the renounced order of life from Sri Sachinandan Saraswati. Having accepted the staff of the renounced order, I traveled to all the holy places, and wherever I went in India, I kept the company of sannyasis who adhere to the doctrine of Sri Sankar. In due course of time, I passed beyond the first three stages of the renounced order, Kutichak, Bahudak, and Hangsa. So these are described. If you're not familiar with this Jaiva Dharma, there's an extensive glossary in the back, 3 glossaries: glossary of terms, glossary of names, and a glossary of places. So this Kutichak sannyas is the sannyas who just builds a kutia within his home area and remains there alone, basically. But he may have his relatives close around. That's called kuti, because a kutia, he stays in a kutia. And the Bahudak, he travels and he preaches. So this is a higher stage than the Kutichak. And then the Hangsa, he's like a swan-like personality. He travels extensively and has no fixed residence at all, and is only living to develop his bhajan simultaneously to serve the conditioned souls. If he's a Goshtinandi, if he's a Bhajanandi, then he's just performing his bhajan. So these 3 stages, and you can reference them, please, in the glossary of terms, and attained the highest status of Paramahamsa. So Sannyasi Thakur has achieved a very high status in his practice, in which I have remained for some time. In Varanasi, I adopted a vow of silence and abided by those statements that Sri Sankaracharya proclaimed to be the Mahavakya, chief axioms of the Vedas: Aham Brahmasmi, Pragyanam Brahm, and Tattvam Asi. However, the happiness and spiritual satisfaction that I was supposed to find did not come to me. So this is the conclusion of his practice. In other words, he's a Brahmagyani. This is what it's revealing. One day, now this part is very, very pivotal. One day I saw a Vaishnav sadhu loudly singing about the pastimes of Sri Hari. I opened my eyes and saw that he was bathed in streams of tears, and in his ecstatic rapture, the hairs of his body were standing on end. He was chanting the names Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda in a choked-up voice, and as he danced, his feet slipped so that he fell on the ground again and again. When I saw him and heard his song, my heart filled with an indescribable ecstasy. Although that mystical experience was so overwhelming, in order to protect my status as a Paramahamsa, I did not speak with him at all. Alas, fie on my rank and status. Cursed be my destiny. I don't know why, but since that day, my heart has become attracted to Sri Krishna Chaitanya's lotus feet. So this is the initial sadhu sangha that it took to ignite that dormant flame within the heart of Sannyasi Thakur by the creeper of the sound vibration of the holy name of the Lord, chanted by a realized sadhu. If you're chanting in this way, this Vaishnava could not even stand up. He was slipping as he chanted. So this indicates complete ecstasy and bliss in his practice. So when Vaishnava Das is hearing that sound vibration, then his heart wakes up to, it becomes filled with this vichitrata we just described, this astonishment. It's saying that he was astonished when he saw the rapture of this Vaishnava chanting. So this mood of astonishment woke within him. Shortly thereafter, I became obsessed with the desire to find that Vaishnava sadhu, but I could not see him anywhere. Never before had I experienced anything like the untainted bliss that I felt when I saw him and heard the holy name emanating from his mouth. After considerable thought, I concluded that the highest benefit for me would be to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. So this is very radical. He's ready now to drop his complete practice of 12 years as a Brahmagyani Paramahamsa, having achieved so much fame and wealth in all the Siddhanta, etc., and all the various debates that he would perform and be proclaimed as such a great orator, etc. And he's ready just to drop that for the bliss that he's perceiving. This is very much likened to Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami, when he leaves his mother's womb after 16 years, he only leaves his mother's womb because Krishna has assured him that Maya Devi will not influence him for the time it takes for a mustard seed to remain on the horn of a cow. So we consider how little time that is. But Shukadev Goswami agreed, yes, that's enough time to leave my father's ashram, Vedavyasa's ashram. So as soon as he left his mother's womb, he just left that ashram. Yam prabhajantam anapetyam apetya prityam. We say this verse every day. He left that ashram. But when he hears the beautiful verses from the Bhagavatam that the wood collectors were trained in by Vyasadeva to chant in the forest to try and attract his son back, when he hears these verses, Bahar Pitanata Barababur Karaneo Karanikaram, these beautiful verses from the Venugit Aksharam, what's that? I can't remember. Anyway, and then this Aho Bakiyam Stana Kalakutam Jighamsa Yapaya Tapya Sadvi, that Krishna granted the Putana witch the position of mother. This just broke Shukadev's heart when he heard the compassionate nature of Krishna. Then he wanted to hear more. So Shukadev, he returns to his father's ashram and he hears the entire Bhagavatam. So Sannyasi Thakur is like this also. He's coming in contact with the sound vibration of the Vaishnavas and he's leaving because Shukadev Goswami is performing a lila. My Gurudev describes that he's not really a Brahmagyani. It's described something that he's in that mindset of like a Gyani or wanting liberation. But my Gurudev says this is only for lila. But his real heart, because previously he was a parrot of Sri Radhika, how can he suddenly be a Brahmagyani? But he's performing this lila in order to demonstrate the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam can attract even a Brahmagyani. So here we have the same dynamic that Sannyasi Thakur is being attracted to the speciality and sweetness of the Vaishnava chanting pure Shuddhanam. So he's hearing that. So now we've reached our hour. I think I can just read a little bit more and we'll go through, we'll see. I left Kashi and went to the beautiful holy land of Sri Vrindavan Dham. There I saw many Vaishnavas uttering the names of Sri Rupa, Sanatan, and Jiva Goswami in a mood of great lamentation. They were absorbed in meditation on the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and they rolled on the ground, chanting the names of Navadvip. When I saw and heard this, a greed arose within me to behold the beautiful holy Dham of Navadvip. I circumambulated the 168 square miles of Brajadam and came to Sri Mayapur just a few days ago. I heard of your glories in the town of Mayapur, so I have come today to take shelter of your lotus feet. Please fulfill my life's aspiration by making this servant an object of your mercy. Paramahamsa Babaji Mahashai took a blade of grass between his teeth. Weeping, he said, "O Sannyasi Thakur, I am absolutely worthless. I have uselessly spent my life filling my belly, sleeping, and engaging in futile talks. It is true that I have taken up residence in this sacred place where Sri Krishna Chaitanya enacted his pastimes. But as the days fly by, I find myself unable to taste this thing known as Krishna Prem." This is a symptom of his greed. He's receiving so much bliss and sweetness, but it's never enough. That's the dynamic of love. It's never finite. It's never static. It's always ecstatic. It has to be a reality. That's why the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan are so remarkable, with the different politics that are arranged with the different camps, the Svapaksh, Vipaksh, etc. All the different gopis constantly with Jatila, Kutila, these different personalities, just creating such a situation where the greed, where meeting and separation is constantly going to be happening. So without that separation, the meeting is not so nourished. You are so fortunate, for you have tasted that divine love merely by seeing a Vaishnava for just a moment. You have received the mercy of Krishna Chaitanya Dev. I will be very grateful if you will kindly remember this fallen wretch for a moment when you are tasting that prem. Then my life will become successful. Premdas Babaji is hungry. Let me just finish this. Saying this, Babaji embraced the sannyasi and bathed him with his tears. When Sannyasi Maharaj touched the limbs of the Vaishnava, he experienced unprecedented bliss within his heart. He began to dance as he wept, and as he danced, he began to sing, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Premdas Guru Jaya, Bhajanananda. All glories to Shri Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. All glories to my divine master Premdas and to the bliss of Bhajan. So we'll stop there. But this is the heart of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is opening his heart to the dedicated listeners to attract them into the realm of Prem Dham, Brajadam, Brajaras. He wants to attract us into this world. It is a mystical world. It's the most beautiful world. It's the kingdom of God. It appears mystical until we've realized that transcendental reality. But this is the direction that we're heading with this scripture. So, Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Vaishnavas ki jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Gauda Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So, the situation is that Sannyasi Thakur, he's connected fully with Premdas Babaji, and Premdas Babaji has embraced him. And with that embrace, he felt horripilation and his hairs rising, and he had never experienced such indescribable bliss as to be embraced by a pure Vaishnava. So Sannyasi Thakur is also, I was explaining yesterday, representing like Shukadev in the same sense that Shukadev came from a Brahmavad condition to embracing the precepts of his noble father Vyasadeva, and Sannyasi Thakur is coming in the same mood that he's come from a Brahmavad place, a Brahmagyan sannyasi, Paramahamsa sannyasi. And we also, or perhaps we're coming more from a Mayavad place. You know, perhaps we didn't know what to believe in, but still we can associate, in a sense, ourselves with Sannyasi Thakur in coming into this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is writing it from this perspective to give the conditioned soul a mood of the astonishment as we make progress in this path. And we see it in Sannyasi Thakur, his progress. So we just sang Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Prabhu Nityananda, Jaya Premadas Guru, Jaya Bhajanananda. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. All glories to my divine master, Prem Das, and to the bliss of Bhajan. Prem Das Babaji and Sannyasi Maharaj danced and performed kirtan for a long time. When they stopped, they spoke together on many topics. Finally, Prem Das Babaji said very humbly, "O Mahatma, kindly stay here in Pradumna Kunj for a few days just to purify me." In every instance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is exemplifying the deep humility of Prem Das Babaji from the very beginning. He's giving us a picture. How is the condition of consciousness in an Uttam Bhakta? Prem Das Babaji is on that platform. Without this type of association, without this type of vision and appreciation, how will we have hope for our future practices, etc., without understanding the speciality of these personalities? Understand? The sannyasi said, "I have offered my body to your lotus feet. Why do you speak of a few days only? My anxious prayer is that I may serve you until I give up this body." In other words, life and death, die to live. Sannyasi Thakur has come forever. He hasn't come on a one-way ticket like a tourist or something like this. He's come forever to dive deeply into this path of Braja Prem and Prem Bhakti. He's come fully for this, and that means you have to give your whole life for that. So he's a completely serious sadhak. There's nothing else going on for him. Sannyasi Thakur was an erudite scholar of all the Shastras. He knew very well that if one stays in the residence of the Guru, one will naturally receive the Guru's instructions. So he took up residence in that grove with great delight. After a few days, Paramahamsa Babaji said to the elevated sannyasi, "O Mahatma, Sri Pradumna Brahmachari has mercifully given me shelter at his lotus feet. At present, he lives in the village of Sri Devapali on the outskirts of Sri Navadvip Mandal." Devapali is another name for Nrsimhapali, exactly the same place. Previously, because now, if you look at the map, it seems that Nrsimhapali is in Goldrumdvip, but actually it's not, it's in Simantadvip. Simantadvip starts on the other side of the river, on the other side of the Saraswati. You cross over Mayapur, and then that Simantadvip goes to where the Chankazi is, but then it actually comes right around the back. That whole island of Simantadvip previously came right around, and Devapali or Nrsimhapali was there within the island of Simantadvip. It wasn't in the island of Koladvip, but because the river is changing, now it appears that Nrsimhapali is in Goldrumdvip, but actually, originally it wasn't. It was in Simantadvip, because you can see the old map. It goes right around. Where are we? Where he is absorbed in the worship of Sri Nrsimhadev. I asked my Gurudev when we were doing this, why are we glorifying this personality in a mood of wanting to hear about Brajras, etc., worship to Sri Radhika, become a Radha Palyadasi, and we're hearing the elevated nature of this person who is worshipping the Nrsimhadev. I couldn't figure out how that could be his Ishtadev, and my Gurudev explained. The Nrsimhadev greatly supports the endeavors of any bhakta. If a bhakta is desirous of Ragmarg, Nrsimhadev will clear all those obstacles in his path for him to attain that position. So Pradumna Brahmachari is in a most humble mood also, just like Prem Das Babaji, and he's residing there in the most wonderful embrace of Sri Nrsimhadev, who can support and nourish someone's Rag, Marg, Bhajan. It's not that Nrsimhadev is only just for the Vaidhi Bhaktas. but Nrsingadev can be embraced for the Raganuga Bhaktas also, where he is absorbed in the worship of Sri Nrsingadev. Today, after collecting alms, let us go there and take darshan of his lotus feet. Sannyasi Thakur replied, I will follow whatever instructions you give me. After 2 o'clock, they crossed the Alakananda river and arrived in Sri Devapalli. They then crossed Suryatila river and took darshan of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associate, Sri Pradumna Brahmachari, who was in the temple of Sri Nrsingadev. So this is going to give us a time reference. Pradumna Brahmachari was an eternal associate of Mahaprabhu. So this is more than now 500 years ago. So this is happening. Pradumna Brahmachari, I think, is elderly now. So this will be a little less than 500 years ago is when this book, the pastimes are set in that historic setting. From afar, Paramahamsa Babaji fell to the ground and offered prostrated obeisances to his guru. Pradumna Brahmachari then came out of the temple, his heart melting with affection for his disciple. Lifting Paramahamsa Babaji with both hands and embracing him very lovingly, he inquired about his welfare. After they discussed topics concerning bhajan for some time, Paramahamsa Babaji introduced Sannyasi Thakur to his guru. Well, I find that interesting, that first of all they discussed topics, and then he introduced him to Sannyasi Thakur. It's not he was putting Sannyasi Thakur in front of their personal relationship. First, they indulged in their personal relationship with great pleasure and happiness and relish, and then he introduced him afterwards. There's not a single sentence that Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes that is irrelevant. Everything is creating such a picture of pure devotion for our journey, our progress. For some time, Paramahamsa Babaji introduced Sannyasi Thakur to his guru. Brahmachari Thakur said with great respect, My dear brother, you have obtained a most qualified guru. You should study the book Prem Vivart under Prem Das's direction. Kiva Vipra, Kiva Nyase, Sudra Kena Noi. Jai Krishna Tattvaveti, Se Guru Hoy. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 8, 128. So this is from the Ramananda Sambad. Whether one is a Brahmana, a sannyasi, or a Sudra, if he is fully conversant with all the truths regarding transcendental knowledge of Sri Krishna, he can become a guru. Sannyasi Thakur humbly offered obeisances at the lotus feet of his Param Gurudev and said, Prabhu, you are an associate of Sri Chaitanya Dev, and you can purify hundreds of arrogant sannyasis like me just by your merciful glance. Please bestow your mercy upon me. So Sannyasi Thakur knows how to behave. He knows how to honor. He knows how to acquire the mercy of the senior devotees. It's very, very important. My Gurudev would spend a lot of time coaching us, schooling us on etiquette. He would tell us, like when we used to sit in front of him, why are the juniors sitting so close? They should give space to the seniors to sit close, etc. He would always be prompting and correcting all the time, this engendering respect throughout for ultimately Guru and all those who are closer to Guru, and then the next levels like this, and this whole current of respect. If that is being taught and practiced in the various groups, then the groups are very, very strong. There's no question. Sannyasi Thakur had no previous experience of the reciprocal behavior between Vaishnavas. However, he accepted the mutual dealings that he observed between his guru and Param Guru as the sadachar, proper etiquette, that he himself should follow, and from that day on he behaved accordingly towards his own guru without a trace of duplicity. It's very important. Our material relationships, even though we're practicing sadhaks, we still have material bodies and we bump into each other in various rude ways sometimes. So we have to try and exemplify the um, behavior of our guru, like Srila Radha Govinda Goswami Maharaj. He such impeccable sadachar always, and this is to teach us the same. And we should, regardless of the other person's perhaps inability to do like that, we should not compromise ourselves, and we make the standard. And if someone is being offended, we do just leave. But we should very diligently practice this. It's essential. As the heart grows closer towards pure devotional service, then the reality of the spiritual world becomes more clear in the heart of the sadhak, and that transcendental Vishuddha Sattva realm starts to be perceived, and the behavior of the residents of those Dharmas is beyond compare. So we are aspiring for that residence. So it starts with our behavior also. It's very, very important. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making a point of bringing it out in this whole incident here. He behaved accordingly towards his own guru without a trace of duplicity. When the evening arti was over, that's the evening arti at Nrsimhapali, was over, the guru and Shishya returned to Sri Godrum. A few days after residing in the Kunj, Sannyasi Thakur became anxious to inquire about spiritual truths from Paramahamsa Babaji. In this way, Sannyasi had adopted... By this time... correct me if I make a mistake here. By this time, the sannyasi had adopted all the ways of a Vaishnava except for his outer dress. During his previous training, Sannyasi Thakur had developed qualities such as full control over his mind and senses, and had become firmly established in the conception of the non-dual, all-pervading absolute Brahmanishta in Brahmanishta. In addition, he had now acquired staunch faith in the transcendental pastimes of Parabrahm Sri Krishna, and had become deeply humble. This is remarkable. It's only just been a few days, but because he was such a sincere personality, as will be revealed in the next chapters, there's many chapters, many examples to reveal the elevated stage of this personality that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is portraying. But we see because this personality will have had good sanskar, he will have had good impressions, and he's practiced controlling his senses, which is essential for the sadhak to make progress. The cause of any sort of disturbance generally comes from our lack of being able to control our material senses. They have to be controlled. We have to make an effort, just like a yogi. We are bhakti yogis. So we need to control the mind very much indeed. Bhagavad Gita. Yehi samsparsaja bhoga dukkha yoni evitai. So many verses are saying in Bhagavad Gita. In addition, he had now acquired staunch faith in the transcendental pastimes of Parabrahm Sri Krishna, and had become deeply humble. Very beautiful. One morning, after performing ablutions, yes, different to ablations, ablutions at the break of dawn, Paramahamsa Babaji sat in the Madhavi Grove chanting Harinam on his Tulsi Mala. At that time, Shri Radha and Krishna Yugal's Nishanta Leela, their pastime just prior to dawn, gradually manifested within his heart. It's important for us to appreciate this Astakalya Leela. My Gurudev said a number of times, many times actually, out of the whole 40 chapters in this Jaiva Dharma, the first 4 are the most important. And out of the first 4, the first 2 are most important. And out of the first 2, the first 1. This first chapter is the most important out of all the other chapters in Jaiva Dharma. It's laying the complete foundation and groundwork for the entire Gaudiya Siddhanta to sit on, to have a strong connection on. So this mentioning immediately about Nishanta Lila, we immediately appreciate, oh, it's just after Ratri Lila. We have the 8 yamas running through the consciousness. So we have Nishanta Lila, Prata Lila, then Purvana Lila, Madhyana Lila, Apurvana Lila, Shyam Lila, Pradosh Lila, and then Ratri Lila. These are the 8 pastimes of the day. The sadhak should study this. Actually, if we look now in the 38th chapter of this Jaiva Dharma, the Astakalya Leelas are completely opened out by Vrindadevi. She's speaking to Narad, and Lord Shivji is there. So all of these pastimes are very clearly spread out there. So this Nishanta Leela is particularly special for the sadhaks because it's the time just prior when Radha and Krishna were in their tightest embrace in the whole 24 hours of the day. At the end of the Ratri Leela, which is the Rasa Leela timing, then their pastimes are the most intense and loving. And that is flowed through into Nishanta Leela, when they're finally alone together in the Kunj, and they're in their most intimate embrace. And very soon, they're going to be in their highest separation mood at the same time. So you've got both of these running together. You've got this intense union, and you've got this really super intense separation going to happen afterwards. When Krishna leaves the Kunj, he has to go back alone to Nandagaon, to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba. And he has no one there with him. He just falls from tree to tree to tree, finally falls into his bed, throws the sheet, and then immediately Mother Yashoda comes in to wake him up. And what's in his heart? He's just feeling the rapture of being with Sri Radhika. So this is a very moving state of consciousness for the sadhak to appreciate. So this is one of the reasons why we rise during this Brahma Muhurta hour. Lord Brahma is so generous in his creation that he's given us this short window, this mode of goodness, Brahma Muhurta hour, from what is it, 3:30, 4 o'clock practically until 6, or 3:36 until 4 something, till 5, oh, it's till 6 o'clock. Yeah, 5:30, approximately like that. So only those hours in the whole day is the mode of goodness present. As soon as those hours finish, the mode of passion kicks in. Everyone goes to work, industry begins, etc. Then in the afternoon, everyone goes to sleep. It's tamagun. And then in the evening time, passion again. And then again, sleep. Tamagun comes. So these are the only couple of hours in the day, the most clear hours in the whole atmosphere, when the sadhak can really chant and really attempt to dive into contemplation and concentration on these ecstatic transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So Lord Brahma has made this particular time. So, and this is, immediately he's describing this. At that time, Sri Radha and Krishna's Yugal Nishanta Lila, their pastime just prior to dawn, gradually manifested within his heart. Because this was the time that Sri Radha and Krishna part from each other's company, leaving the Kunj to return to their respective homes. Paramahamsa Babaji felt great pangs of separation, and tears of love streamed continuously from his eyes. While absorbed in meditation on this pastime, he was internally engaged in service appropriate to that period of the day in his perfected spiritual form. Thus, he had lost all awareness of his physical body. Again, this is describing the elevated condition of Premdas Babaji. Sannyasi Thakur was captivated by Babaji's state and sat beside him, observing his sattvika bhavs, transcendental symptoms of ecstasy. These sattvika bhavs are physically present: horripilation, kampa, this romancha, all these ashru bhavs are there physically. And when Radha and Krishna interact with each other, these bhavs are, they can see these bhavs within each other. And this is intoxicating for both of them to appreciate each other's moods like that. So suddenly Paramahamsa Babaji said to him, "O Saki, silence Kakati, Shrimati Radhika's monkey, at once, otherwise she will rouse Radha Govinda from their sleep of divine pleasure. Then Lalita Saki will become distressed and will rebuke me. Look there, Ananga Manjari is signaling for you to do this. You are Raman Manjari, and this is your designated service. Be attentive in this regard." What a packet that paragraph is, completely. Right in the very beginning, we've only read 5-6 pages, and immediately Bhaktivinoda Thakur is inviting us in to appreciate the reality of the transcendental spiritual world and the nature of a Uttam Bhakta, Uttam Sadak, Siddha, who is immersed in those pastimes. Kakati is that monkey that has to call out. And later on, this monkey, what's the monkey going to call out? Jyotila's coming, Jyotila's coming. But what does Jyotila mean? Jyotila also means dawn. So the dawn is coming, but Radha and Krishna don't think that. They just think the old cranky lady, Jyotila, is coming to catch them together, because this is part of the duality that we just described in the spiritual world, to create the intensity of union. It's all to create the intensity. Everything is there to facilitate Radha and Krishna's meeting and happiness, everything that's happening in Braj. So all of these apparent personalities like Jyotila and Kotila, they're so much necessary for this Leela to transpire. So now we're hearing about Lalita Saki, and we're hearing about Ananga Manjari. We should know, by the way, that Ananga Manjari is not a Manjari. We should understand she's actually a Saki, but her name is Ananga Manjari, the younger sister of Sri Radhika. And she's married to the younger brother of Abhimanyu, Durmada. And she's also in the household of Jyotila. But she has conjugal relationships with Krishna. So she's not a Manjari. She's a Saki. We see when we go to Radhakund. I think we mentioned this the other day when we went to Radhakund, in front of the sitting place of Janavi Devi, in that temple there with Gopinath. Ananga Manjari is on Krishna's left, which is always reserved for Krishna's Shakti Radha. And Radharani is standing on his right. So this is the position of Ananga Manjari. But Ananga Manjari, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has really emphasized her a lot in his bhajans, in his poetry. And he even has called his house here Swananda Sukata Kunj, which is the place where Ananga Manjari resides in Radhakund. Her island is actually in the middle of Radhakund. Swa Ananda Sukata Kunj. That's her place. So he's called his temple here Swananda, and he's often mentioning Ananga Manjari. It's an interesting, because Ananga Manjari is also embodied within Nityananda Prabhu, also Janavi Devi. So these personalities, they embody, or Ananga Manjari is within the body of Balaram. That's how he's performing the rasa pastimes in Braj, because we know that Balaram, he performs all 5 rasas in Braj. He's the repository of that, so he has the form of Ananga Manjari. So Ananga Manjari is very potent, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur was mentioning him right here, right in the beginning. After uttering these, and he's also given Sannyasi Thakur his Swarup name, his eternal name, this Raman Manjari. And I must just mention here that a few devotees over the years, they've commented, oh, does this mean, is this the same name as my Gurudev? My Gurudev's name is also Raman Manjari, but this has nothing to do with that at all. To my knowledge, this is purely coincidental. It's not at all meaning that this is referencing my Gurudev. I'd never heard my Gurudev even say a whisper about anything of that nature at all. He has shared with us his name, his dress, etc. All of this is being given, but nothing in reference here. So this is not Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj's form appearing in pages of Jaiva Dharma. No, it's not. He appears in the pages of Jaiva Dharma because he translated it from the Bengali into the Hindi, and then he inspired the Western devotees to translate it into English. So that is how he is appearing in this Jaiva Dharma, which is very prominently. He's giving us this Jaiva Dharma. After uttering these words, Paramahamsa Babaji fell unconscious. From that moment, Sannyasi Maharaj, now acquainted with his spiritual identity and service, engaged himself accordingly. We don't have to ask what it was that he did. That will be inspired within the heart of the realized soul. When the soul realizes his transcendental identity, automatically at that time, his seva, etc., all the Ekadash Bhavs are naturally going to be revealed to him very clearly. There doesn't have to be any separate endeavor, questioning, or anything like that. After uttering these words, Paramahamsa Babaji fell unconscious. From that moment, Sannyasi Maharaj, now acquainted with his spiritual identity and service, engaged himself accordingly. Thus the day dawned, and the morning light spread its luster in the east. Birds began chirping melodiously in every direction, and a gentle breeze blew. The extraordinary beauty of the Madhavi Grove of Pradumna Kunj, illuminated by the crimson rays of the rising sun, was beyond description. So this can carry the consciousness to a very sattvic pace of contemplation. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making like these waves, of visually to appreciate. I can remember previously in my school days really appreciating this author Charles Dickens. I read all his books thinking that he was an incredibly descriptive, and the way he would create his characters and everything. But coming to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he so much excels any other material writer in just on the mundane platform, what to speak of the spiritual content. But this is very beautiful. You see the exhilaration from the beginning here. The Sannyasi Thakur, he's contemplating his own condition, and then he's having this experience with Prem Das Babaji in his samadhi, and then he's hearing about Lalita and Ananga, and then he's being given his Siddha Sarup, he's being given his spiritual identity as Raman Manjari. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur concludes this little aspect with this incredible description of the environment around there at the time. What's the time? 6 o'clock. I think this is a good place to end. A very beautiful place to end today. So we'll begin from the beginning of page 8 tomorrow. I'm not in a hurry to read through this Jaiva Dharma. Our intention is not just to race through it and say, yes, I've studied Jaiva Dharma or something like that. My intention is to relish it at every chapter and every sentence, and to pray to my Gurudev to bring out more of the essential truths that are here. But these truths are unlimited. They can go on for it. We could just turn around right now and start from page 1 of chapter 1 and read again, and we'd get a newer, fresher appreciation and realization. Just like the Bhagavatam and just like the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We can read it again and again and again and again. I must have read this Jaiva Dharma so many times, and yet every time I read it, I feel I've never read it before. I have that feeling of its astonishing beauty and speciality. And every time I read it, I'm appreciating newer and newer truths that are buried here. It's like a gold mine. It's just endlessly, we can churn it and bring these out. So I'm not in a hurry. So we'll stop today on page 8 and carry on tomorrow. So Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Yes, this appreciation of Bhaktivinoda Thakur is essential to embarking on our journey and study of Jaiva Dharma. More and more our immersion, because this personality has given so much information about himself to the world for our meditation. He wrote so many letters to his elder son, Lalit Prasad, which are very descriptive of his activities, etc. He shared with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati so many thoughts and conclusions that he had in his bhajan, etc. They knew each other. There's a description when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was with his noble father on a train station, and this was in later years, and then his father went into a complete samadhi, meditation, on the station. They were sitting on a bench and just fainted. And then all people came around. They wanted to take him to a hospital. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wouldn't let anyone just touch him, just let him sit still for about 40-50 minutes, and then he returned from that samadhi consciousness. But like that's, you can't get much more intimate than that. That was the sort of relationship Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had with his father. He was appreciating the height of his states of consciousness that he would attain. So when we hear more about the great Thakur, this gives us more opportunity to understand his words and what does he want from us? How can we proceed? How can we also, in turn, distribute this? So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So now we come to page 8, and I'm just going to refresh the previous paragraph because it was a very delightful paragraph. After the intense meeting with Premdas Babaji, when he was merged in the chanting of Hari Nam and meditating on Nishanta Lila. We were describing this yesterday. He was seeing, and then he calls out to Sannyasi Thakur, hey, your name is Raman Manjari. Stop that monkey making a noise and disturbing the divine couple. So, and the whole line was Ananga Manjari, Lalita Sakhi, etc., all explained. But now this last paragraph is very sweet. After uttering these words, Premdas Babaji fell unconscious. From that moment, Sannyasi Maharaj, now acquainted with his spiritual identity and service, engaged himself accordingly. Once you cross that line, that's it forever. If you try to go back into the shelter or apparent illusioned security of the material world that we've lived in all our lives, then we're going to lose that connection. Krishna will give us the mercy to experience different spiritual states. All the bhaktas will get mercy. But if you try to run back into your material, apparent, secure shelter of material thinking, then you're going to lose that. That's why courage is called for on this path. Courage and conviction. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about faithful. Where is our faith? Is our faith more planted in this material world? We get a realization of some spiritual concept. Oh, no, no, that's too high. Let me run back to mummy. Let me run back to my home life, you know? Let me run back to that mentality like a baby, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it happens like that. So we have to have courage. And if we have association, then of course it's a lot easier to stay in those higher stages of consciousness. And then we'll go to a higher stage still, etc., etc. Thus the day dawned, and the morning light spread its luster in the east. Birds began chirping melodiously in every direction, and a gentle breeze blew. The extraordinary beauty of the Madhavi Grove of Pradumna Kunj, illuminated by the crimson rays of the rising sun, was beyond description. Why? Because transcendental exchanges had just taken place. So that evoked the transcendental aspect of nature herself. These types of experiences, they have an effect in the ether, without a doubt. It's like if you visit the yog pit, for example, and you place your head in front of the deities, if you're at all sensitive, you can sense the potency of that place. That was where the Supreme Lord appeared. There's a power there, like almost a magnetic pull on the consciousness. In the yog pit, when you bow down, offer obeisances there, that land was the place of Mahaprabhu's advent. So all his Shaktis, everything came to that land. These are eternal Shaktis. They have an effect on the environment. Don't doubt it. They have a tangible effect on the spiritual life is reality. We're so convinced and hardened. So we have to read more of this because this is going to describe exactly what I'm saying very nicely here. So I'm going to start from page 8 at the top. Paramahamsa Babaji was seated on a cushion of banana bark. As he gradually regained external consciousness, he began to chant Sri Nam on his beads. Sannyasi Thakur then offered prostrated obeisances at Babaji's feet. Sat next to him, and with folded hands spoke with great humility. Again, every single sentence that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is writing has a purport to it. It's not just a pretty story. He, with great humility, is going to approach his guru to inquire from him. If you inquire in any sort of challenging way at all, there was even a little clip that comes on the yes, Gaudiya Rasam today about not challenging Tadviri Pranipatena, Pranipashena Sevaya. This verse my Gurudev was quoting. Don't come with a challenging mentality. How can you challenge the supreme absolute truth? That means you think you're better than the truth. Of course, the arrogance of any type of material success will obstruct us. If we think we've made some type of material progress, that I'm a very erudite scholar perhaps, that's even material progress because it's comparing to other people. Our path is not about scholarship. Our path is about devotion, devotion in the heart. This is what it's about. So in great humility, Prabhu, O Master, this destitute soul wishes to submit a question before you. Kindly reply and pacify my anguished heart. In other words, he's saying, I must know the answer to this. This is a mood of greed. He's a mood of desperation also. He wants this question to be answered. And this question is so profound. This question we have to read a couple of times because this question is going to hold through for the next 2 chapters, basically. It's going to unpack this single question. This is the brilliance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's crafting this Jaiva Dharma. Kindly reply and pacify my anguished heart. May you be pleased to infuse Braja Ras into my heart, which has been scorched by the fire of Brahmagyan, knowledge aimed at the impersonal absolute, devoid of form, qualities, and activities. This is Advaitavad. Sannyasi Thakur is following the path of Advaita, the path that was propounded by Sankaracharya. He's an Advaitavad. This is saying that everything is one. Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva also says that we are one with Krishna, but one in service to Krishna. So it's such a subtle difference, really, this Advaitavad. This will come up more in the text. Babaji replied, "You are a fit candidate." I was thinking this is very prominent also. You have to have confidence that you are capable of acquiring these higher states of consciousness. I can remember personally in my own life when I first came to my Gurudev, he told me repeatedly all the time, "Oh, you are most qualified. You are most qualified." He kept on, I didn't feel qualified even to pick up anything, to do anything. But he kept on this reassuring mood. You are qualified. You are qualified for this path. Don't doubt it. Take inspiration from my words to you. You're qualified. He kept saying that again and again. So each individual soul has a different need for different encouragements in different areas. But this idea of having the confidence to consider that I'm a fit candidate. So Babaji is saying, you are a fit candidate. So whatever I'm going to say to you, I have the respect that you will understand what I'm going to say. So he'll speak to him the topmost knowledge, having said that he has respect for Sannyasi Thakur's erudition and his ability to control his senses. These two things. Whatever questions you ask, I will answer as far as I am able. So he's not saying confident, yes, I can answer anything you say, is he? He's saying, as far as I am blessed to answer, as far as able. There's not a smell of pride. Unfortunately, today, with the sort of institutional backdrop, the various preachers or gurus, they sit on a higher stage, and so many supports for their importance. We put it on those people to make them feel very important, but that's good to make them, from our point of view, but there has to be some balance there. If it gets out of control, we see when Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada first came, he would just sit on a very slightly raised seat, that was all. But when he left, the devotees had put these massive vyasasans built, and then that trend went forward. Yes, give me lots of glorification. I am Guru now. Bring me all your wealth, etc. This is not the principle of Guru. Guru is trying to give the wealth of his understanding of the Shastra. He doesn't want anything from this world. There's a difference. So whatever questions you ask, I will answer as far as I'm able. Now listen carefully, because I might read this paragraph twice because it's very important. Sannyasi Thakur said, Prabhu, for a long time I have heard of the preeminence of Dharma. On numerous occasions, I have asked the question, what is Dharma? To so many people, it is a cause of distress to me that the answers those people have given contradict each other. So please tell me, what is the true constitutional Dharma of the Jiva? And why do different teachers explain the nature of Dharma in such diverse ways? If Dharma is one, why don't all learned teachers cultivate that one universal Dharma, which is without a second? So how many religions are there on the planet? How many individuals propounding their way is the best? You know, they fight about it. They kill each other for it, for their imagined understanding of what is Dharma. But there is Sanatan Dharma, which is eternal. So this is what this is going to unpack and unfold. I hope you've all understood the question very, very clearly. What is Dharma? And why are there so many different opinions concerning Dharma? If Dharma is one, why does everyone argue about the nature of Dharma? So think about the question, please. So Paramahamsa Babaji meditated on the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Krishna Chaitanya. That's also very significant. If you ask a speaker a question and he doesn't give any type of Mangalacharyan, he doesn't give any type of prayer to indicate that he is praying to the Supreme Lord for the empowerment to answer the specific question, then it's just probably coming from his own imagination or his own opinion. We are transcendental vessels that can receive transcendental mercy from above if we invoke that mercy in a sincere way. If we chant prayers, we always chant Mangalacharyan prayers before we begin, invoking the mercy of our Guru Vargya to allow me to be your instrument, not my own greatness. Such a distinction. And many times the devotees fall into the trap of considering that, yes, they know so much, they've read so much, they know so much. But that's unfortunate, because then they're not depending on Krishna for the knowledge. Because every single question we're ever asked, in practically every instance, we've never heard it quite like that before. I can remember when I was traveling for many years, so many questions would come each day. And every single question had to be addressed individually. From whose heart is this question coming from? You should never ask a question because you've heard that someone else has a doubt. That person who might have a doubt has to ask the question themselves. If you try and represent somebody else asking a question, you're not going to get the real answer. There's going to be some obstruction in the flow. But if you have the question from your heart, then it can be cleared. You understand that? Meditated upon the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Krishna Chaitanya and began to speak. O most fortunate one, I shall describe to you the principles of Dharma as far as my knowledge allows. Now, listen carefully. An object is called a vastu. Don't become confused about the vocabulary here. You have to write down perhaps 10 or 12 words to understand the language that he's going to speak. Don't think that the Sanskrit is going to cover the meaning of what Bhaktivinoda Thakur wants. There was another edition of Jaiva Dharma, and that before we had this one, and that translator had tried to translate all the Sanskrit terminologies, and it was so difficult to understand. I couldn't understand what he was saying, because when we get the Sanskrit terminology, like an object is called a vastu, and if we learn what a vastu is, there's no other word that means the same as vastu. So when we hear this term vastu and we use that terminology, it opens up a whole appreciation of the meaning of that. But if you try to translate it, it's going to be a shortfall. It's like with the Gayatri mantras. If you try to give a translation of the Gayatri mantras, you're going to try to fix them in a certain meaning. Those Gayatri mantras are evolving in our consciousnesses daily. They're not fixed. It's like love itself is not fixed. It's always moving. It's always ecstatic. It's always growing. It's alive. So these mantras, they are alive. And if we try to restrict them to a specific meaning today, and a week later when we're chanting them, we're thinking, and the consciousness wants to go broader on the meaning, then, but we keep running back to what was written down about the meaning. My Gurudev was very clear about this. Once I tried to write, because so many devotees would not hear the Gayatri mantras correctly. So I wrote down a whole sort of translation of all of them, and I gave it to my Gurudev and said, can I send this out for people to focus more on their Gayatri mantras? And my Guru said, never. You do like this and they'll think that forever this is the meaning of the mantra. This might be the meaning of the mantra for a year or two, but then the mantra has to evolve in our depth and appreciation of it. Understand? It has to grow. So like this, with these various terminologies, try to understand them in the Sanskrit vocabulary. An object is called a vastu, and its eternal nature is its nitya dharma. Okay? A single object. A vastu can't be broken down. A vastu is like an element. An element can't be broken down further than its elemental makeup. So a vastu also can't be broken down. Understand? Nature arises from the elementary structure of an object, ghatana. The elementary structure of an object, like nature, like you take a ball, for example. It has a dharma. The dharma of a ball is to roll. So its structure is round. Try to understand what it's saying deeply. There are many examples, but I should read on a bit more. By Krishna's desire, when an object is formed, a particular nature is inherent in that structure as an eternal concomitant factor. Just like the ball, for example. Its inherent nature to roll is built into its structure. This nature is the nitya dharma of the object. It's the eternal nature of that object. The nature of a given object becomes altered or distorted when a change takes place within it, either by force of circumstances or due to contact with other objects. This is the reason why there are so many contradictions on the meaning of Dharma, because people have distorted their impression of what Dharma means. They haven't understood the essential nature of Dharma, therefore they've interpreted according to their own taste. It's like religions, for example, all over the planet. You know, they have different rituals and so on, according to the country traditional customs that are there. And they develop those ideas of religiosity according to their environment. They're not adhering to the one Dharma. The principal Dharma is to love God. That's the principal Dharma that we're talking about. But it becomes distorted to understand who is God or what is God. They misinterpret it because they're not understanding, they're not educated sufficiently. The nature of a given object becomes altered or distorted when a change takes place within it, either by force of circumstances or due to contact with other objects. With the passage of time, the distorted nature becomes fixed and appears to be permanent, like our consideration, I am this body. This is a distorted impression of my real identity. I am a spirit soul more than I am this body. My spirit soul is residing within this body. But because of this distortion, I've started to think that I am the body by association with the body. This will be explained. This distorted nature is not the swabhav. Swa means own. Bhav means nature. Swabhav, my own nature. This distorted understanding is not my own nature. It's been influenced by something external. In this case, the glitter of the material attraction has crafted this enjoying body. This distorted nature is not the swabhav, true nature. It is called nishag. This word we should know like we know the back of our hand, like we know the word prasadam. Nishag is a beautiful word because it means the distorted conception of my identity. Nisha, through association with matter, it's become distorted. You'll give an example. That nature which is acquired through long-term association. We've been in these material bodies for unlimited billions of births. So we've got this impression that I am material. It's a big enterprise to actually purify this material condition. We have to work diligently at it. This nishag occupies the place of the factual nature and becomes identified as the Swabhav. Try to understand every sentence separately, and then you'll catch it. Now I really want to read this next part, this next example. For example, water is an object, and its Swabhav is liquidity, right?
Yes.
It's liquidity. When water solidifies due to certain circumstances and becomes ice, the acquired nature of solidity takes the place of its inherent nature, which is liquid. If we understand that water has consciousness, there's been many experiments to prove that water has consciousness. If you speak to water and you have scientific instruments, you can bring out the impression that your language to water will reflect back. One Japanese scientist, he's proved this. If you say war, then a certain kind of mandala will reveal it. If you say love, another whole warm mandala will be revealed. So water does most assuredly have consciousness. So if you ask this block of ice, what is your nature? He will tap it very, very hard. Oh, I am hard. I am hard. Because of this acquired nature to ice. For perhaps billions of years, it's been an iceberg. So it's thinking, I am ice. But if a warm current comes, again, it'll go back to its liquid form. It's real Dharma. So it's become distorted. And this distortion is called nishag. Try to remember this word. And becomes ice. The acquired nature of solidity takes place and its inherent nature. In reality, this acquired nature is not eternal. Rather, it is occasional or temporary. We're going to call it nimitic. It arises because of some cause. And when that cause is no longer effective, this acquired nature vanishes automatically. When it's not cold for the iceberg and it's warm, the Swabhav will naturally reassert itself and it'll come again to be liquid. This is the most sublime example that we can share with so many people. It arises because of some cause, and when that cause is no longer effective, this acquired nature vanishes automatically. However, the Swabhav is eternal. Yes, the nature is eternal. It's still there. It doesn't go away. It may become distorted, but it still remains inseparably connected to its object, and the original nature will certainly become evident again when the proper time and circumstances arise. In other words, our spirit soul will respond to spirit environment. This is why, for example, it's so beneficial to reside in the holy Dharmas, even for a day or two or a week or three. And if we can organize our situations so we can reside here longer, because the effect of the environment, the spiritual environment, the impact on the consciousness will reveal and wake up our inherent Swabhav, which is only Jivara Surupoi Krishnaranitas. The Swabhav of an object is its Nitya Dharma, eternal function. Swabhav and Nitya Dharma, remember these terms. While its acquired nature is its Naimitic Dharma, occasional function. Those who have true knowledge of objects, Vastu Gyan, we talked about Vastu before, can know the difference between eternal and occasional function, whereas those who lack this knowledge consider acquired nature to be true nature, and they consequently mistake the temporary Dharma for eternal Dharma. I find that completely conclusive. If you read it carefully, I think it will also find it completely, it's complete, this explanation. It doesn't really need any other embellishment. It's full. So now a question. What is it that is called Vastu? And what is the meaning of swabhav? So this is a good question. We'll go in this tomorrow. So we haven't covered much ground physically, but I think we've covered a lot of ground, laying a platform, a foundation to go forward. It's a serious, sober journey, and we need to be. We hear in Bhagavad Gita matter and spirit constantly. We hear in Srimad Bhagavatam from different perspectives the same teaching. We're hearing with another set of terminologies, but it's the same principle of what is swadharma, what is pure dharma. This is what we're going to hear. It's fascinating. So tomorrow we'll read from here. So page 9. So chapter 1 here, page 9. So yesterday we had this remarkable example of the water, if you remember, and it was describing what is the swabhav, to appreciate the eternal dharma and nature of water as liquidity, not as its acquired nature, nishag. Nishag is the acquired nature. So be familiar and comfortable with these terminologies because they really fit beautifully when we realize I'm in this material body and this is an acquired nature for my soul. It's not who I am. But it takes time to realize that. Even we hear it again and again and again, but still, but if slowly we begin to leave behind our various material priorities and try to put this spiritual practice more and more on the front burner of my existence, then it's going to become more simple to relate to the fact that I'm soul and not this material body. So we discussed this, or Bhaktivinoda Thakur described this very beautifully about the ice and its acquired nature. So try to hold on to these. And if you get a chance to repeat this to somebody, it's a mind-blowing description. People can get it straight away. Yes, the ice is liquid. It's not hard, but it's thinking that it's hard because of so much time being an iceberg. Okay, now we come. Where were we up to actually? I think yes. So now Paramahamsa Babaji wants to. Oh, Sannyasi Thakur, the question. Now he wants to know further the nature of a vastu. By the way, if I sent that copy of those notes around, they're very helpful indeed. These were made by the original translator of these first 12 chapters. His name is Navadvip Prabhu, and he was completely absorbed in the topics of this Jaiva Dharma. He was very much a scholar, and he made these notes very beautifully. And we can go through these notes, and you can, if you print them out like I printed these notes out, then it becomes, you can instantly access all of the teachings of this chapter very easily. So now Sannyasi Thakur is saying, what is that? Oh, what is it that is called vastu? And what is the meaning of swabhav? So he's already explained it, but we need to hear it again. Paramahamsa Babaji said, the word vastu is derived from the Sanskrit verbal root vas, which means to exist. So we're discussing, remember the question all the time that Sannyasi Thakur asked. If there's one dharma, why do so many people describe it in different ways? We're trying to understand the nature of dharma. We're trying to understand this, and Premdas Babaji is explaining it by defining the nature of dharma. Paramahamsa said, the word vastu is derived from the Sanskrit verbal root vas, which means to exist or to dwell. The verbal root becomes a noun when the suffix tu is added. Therefore, vastu means that which has existence or which is self-evident. This is a vastu. There are two types of vastu, vastava and avastava. The term truly abiding substance, vastava, vastu, refers to that which is grounded in transcendence. If it's a truly abiding substance, then it has eternal existence. Ultimately, it's going to be mentioned there are only three vastus: Bhagavan, the Jiva, and the material energy, or Maya. Only three in existence. There's no others except these three. And everything else is revolving around these three essential vastus. And the relationship between these three vastus is called Sambandha Gyan. So this chapter is about Sambandha Gyan in relationship to these three principles. So we have Vastava, Vastu, and Avastava. So this is being explained now. Temporary objects, Avastava Vastu, are Dravya, solid objects, Guna, qualities, and so on. So these are temporary, Avastava. When we put an A in front of it, like we say Agyan, which is ignorance, we say Avaishnava, which is not a Vaishnava. There's different words we use with the A in the front. It means it's not that. So Avastava. And Dravya, solid objects, and Guna, qualities. These are temporary. Qualities and solid objects are only material. They're not eternal. Real objects have eternal existence. Unreal objects only have a semblance of existence, which is sometimes real and sometimes unreal. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam. Only a truly abiding substance, which is related to the supreme absolute truth, and which yields supreme auspiciousness, is worthy of being known. In other words, Nityadam should be the only focus. Why should we waste our time in anything less than that? From this statement, it is clearly understood that the only real substance is that which is related to the supreme transcendence. Sri Bhagavan is the only real entity, Vastava Vastu. The living entity, Jiva, is a distinct or individual part of that entity, while Maya, the potency that produces bewilderment, is the energy of that entity. Three Vastus, Bhagavan, Jiva, and Maya. These are the three eternally abiding substances. He's describing what is Dharma. If Dharma is not based on this, then it's going to be based on some material influence. It's going to have a little bit of a twist on it. In other words, you get different religions, and some of the religion will have some value if it's come something from the Vedic teachings, but then the rest of it has all been imported, so to speak, according to the culture and traditions of the land where that religion has manifested from. But it won't be pure Dharma. It'll be Mishra. It'll be mixed. Therefore, the word Vastu refers to three fundamental principles: Bhagavan, the Jiva, and Maya. So understand that, and understand it in relationship to what is the meaning of Sambandha Gyan. It means the relationship between these three. What is my Jiva relationship with Krishna, ontologically, spiritually, and what is my relationship with Maya? Maya has the propensity to control me. Krishna controls Maya. My relationship with Krishna is one of servant. Knowledge of the mutual relationship between these three principles is known as pure knowledge, Shuddha Gyan. It's also known as Sambandha Gyan, relationship. There are innumerable apparent representations of these three principles, and they are all regarded as avastava vastu, unreal substances, right? There's so many different relationships that the jiva has with material objects, friends, relatives, family, etc., etc. They are all temporary. If we understand this principle of eternal truths, our life becomes very strong. It's very much, we're building a platform of truth, of essential realities. And it's not what we had always thought it was previously. We have to be educated to come to accept this reality. That means we have to let go of what we previously considered was the absolute truth. This is what education means. When you accept a new focus, a new standard, a new truth, that means you let go of that previous impression and you come to the truthful impression. There are innumerable apparent representations of these three principles. They are all regarded as avastava vastu. Yes, they're not eternal. Unreal substances. The classification of phenomena into various categories such as objects, dravya, and qualities, guna. The Sanskrit has to be placed there because later on there will be many references to dravya and guna. And if you understand clearly the meaning of them, it'll be very helpful. Which is undertaken by the Vaisheshika school of philosophy, is merely a deliberation on the nature of avastava vastu, temporary objects, though this Vaisheshika school is discussing the distinctions between material considerations. By the way, I think I have to educate you because I'm getting some very basic questions now. Somebody asked me the other day, where is the Falshruti? They didn't even know the Falshruti is actually in the book. And they might ask me questions about different terminologies. They're all in the back. I'm saying it again. I said it a couple of days ago. These three very comprehensive glossaries are there. Utilize this book. It's fully comprehensive. There's a very good index also at the back if you want to know a particular word. This should become our loving friend. And there's so much, it's so easy to access when you know the glossary, the Falshruti, the index, etc. Everything is there.
Vaisheshik is there on page 914.
Yes. Page
914.
914.
Glossary of terms.
You can read about the Vaisheshiki school or the Vaisheshiki philosophy. You can read that yourself for a more in-depth description. What was it?
914.
914. The special characteristic, Vishesh Gun, of any truly abiding substance is its factual nature. The Jiva is a real entity and has eternal characteristic quality in his true nature. The Jiva is a real entity and has eternal characteristic quality in his true nature. What's that?
You said and has eternal, but it's and his eternal characteristics.
The Jiva is a real entity and his eternal characteristic quality is his true nature. Yes, thank you. My eyes are not as strong as they used to be. Correct me anytime. Sannyasi Maharaj said, Prabhu, I want to understand this topic very clearly. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking to us. We have to understand this topic very clearly. We want to, because it's very deep. And if we catch it, it'll make a world of difference in everything that we perceive in this world. It'll make this distinction between matter and spirit. I was saying this yesterday. It's the first teaching in Bhagavad Gita. What is the distinction between matter and spirit? Once that's understood categorically, then you're not going to be confused for anything. If there's various deaths or suffering or disasters, etc., you can see it in the context of what is eternal and what is temporary. It doesn't mean you become callous and hard to various catastrophes that happen in life and you just reside in some gyan type consciousness. The heart is also functioning with a sense of compassion, but at the same time, we don't go to pieces about it. If suddenly mother and father die, suddenly children die, yes, this is a tragedy. Don't try to say, oh, this is just their karma or something like that. How is that going to be comforting? We see it many, many times. Even Hiranyakashipu was preaching to his family members. I think it's the second chapter of the 7th canto. He's preaching to his family members about the death of Hiranyaksha. They're all weeping, etc. So even he is understanding the philosophical aspect. But at the same time, there is the material consideration. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he talks about this in the 5th chapter, 6th chapter, I think, about being balanced. This is a holistic process. Everything has to be incorporated. Sannyasi Thakur, Sannyasi Maharaj said, Prabhu, I want to understand this topic very clearly. Babaji Mahashai replied, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who was an object of the mercy of Nityananda, Prabhu, showed me a manuscript. Why was he an object of Nityananda's mercy? What's the pastime? When he, apparently in his family life, he argued with his brother. His brother had condemned Abhiram, Mini Caitanya Ram. Mini Caitanya Ram had visited their household, who was a exemplary pure devotee, and his brother and the pujari, Gunanava, had not accepted what Mini Caitanya Ram was saying. They were only accepting Mahaprabhu. They were not accepting Nityananda, because Nityananda was in the mood of an avadut. So it was very hard for people to understand the avadut activities of Nityananda. So some would reject Nityananda. But Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj was very angry with this because his nishta was fully with Nityananda Prabhu. And that night he had a dream, and a beautiful person on a chariot with a palm frond on his emblem came, and it was Baladev, and ordered him directly to go to Vrindavan. So this was the mercy of Nityananda on Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj. He went to Vrindavan immediately at a young age. He was about 18 or 19. So sometimes we get the wrong impression, because there's a beautiful painting that Shamrani did years ago, but it depicts Krishnadas Kaviraj as being an old man in the painting, seeing this vision of Baladev. He wasn't. If you go to the village here, his home village, Jalapur, I think is the name of it, but there you'll find his family house, and they will tell you categorically he left when he was about 18 or 19 years old. He never got married. He left at a late teens is when he left her and went to reside in Radhakund for the rest of his life, where he wrote the Govinda Lilamrita and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he was a young man when he left, not old. So I know personally I had the impression that he was old when he left, because I could see this painting. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said a painting tells 1,000 words. So if we're doing a painting to put in a divine holy book, it has to be under guidance and it has to be correct according to Tattva and Siddhanta. If it's not correct, I don't know how that got, because Prabhupada was directing all of Shamrani Didi's works. But that image of the old man, old Krishnadas Kaviraj, made me always have that impression that he left late. No, he left when he was young. So that's just a note to add. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami showed me a manuscript that he had written with his own hand. Sriman Mahaprabhu has instructed us on this subject in the book named Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 20:108, as follows. Jivera Suruphoy Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, Beda Abeda Prakash. So the constitutional nature of the Jiva is to be an eternal servant of Sri Krishna, He is the marginal potency of Krishna and is a manifestation simultaneously one with him and different from him. This was spoken to Sanatan Goswami when he's asking Mahaprabhu in Varanasi, who am I? Ki ami? Who am I? He's saying, everyone is calling me a great pandit, a great scholar, but actually I don't consider that the truth. I want to know what is my spiritual identity. Mahaprabhu is responding this, Jiva Swarup Hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. You are an eternal servant of Krishna. And then Krishna Boli se Jiva Anadi Bahir Mukh. Ataiva Maya Tare Deya Samsara Duk. This is again from the same chapter, Madhya Lila 20, Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Jiva who has forgotten Krishna has been preoccupied with the external potency since time without beginning. He couldn't find the internal spiritual strength. So the overpowering potency of the illusory energy completely took away the Jiva's power to discriminate. And he just falls under this sway. Why? Because the Jiva wants to enjoy matter. That's the specific reason why the Jiva actually comes into this world. He does get a choice in the Tatashta region. He gets a choice to either go back and serve the Lord in his divine spiritual form, or to become like the Lord and like the enjoyer, like the bhakta, the bhaktari, the enjoyer. We are not the enjoyers, we are the enjoyed. Consequently, Krishna's illusory potency, Maya, gives him mercy in the form of material existence. Ha! This is mercy. We have to consider all the difficulties in life as mercy. And why are they mercy? Because hopefully they will push us into a place of exasperation with the sufferings. And we'll finally just bow down our heads on our knees. Dear Lord, how can I be relieved of this shocking suffering? When we hear of suffering conditions in the world, actually it's mercy on those jivas. It's karma also, of course, that they are undergoing. But simultaneously, the devotee will see it as mercy. But the materialist will see it as his karma. He'll see it as the fruits of his previous activities. But the devotee sees that as mercy. Mercy which will bring him closer to the... This is the land, the world in Jambadweep, in this Burloka of Karma Yoni. Karma Yoni means the species of karma. In the heavenly planets, it's Bhoga Yoni. It's the pleasure species. In the lower planets, it's Papa Yoni. But here it's Karma Yoni. We are incurring our various karmas. But these karmas are going to give us mercy. Jiva Goswami, he says, Dear Lord, please demonstrate this suffering condition as your mercy. I am understanding that all this suffering is nothing but your mercy. Whatever suffering I am undergoing. Therefore, the devotee can become tolerant of all the various afflictions that confront him during his life. Krishna is the complete transcendental substance, Chidvastu. Chid means eternal, spiritual, fully transcendental. Krishna is that Chidvastu. He is often compared to the sun of the spiritual realm, and the jivas are compared to the sun's atomic particles of light. Jivas are innumerable. When it is said that they are individual parts of Krishna, it does not mean that they are like the pieces of stone that form a mountain. Although innumerable jiva portions emanate from Sri Krishna, he is not diminished by this in the slightest. For this reason, the Vedas have compared the jivas in one respect to sparks emanating from a fire. In reality, no adequate comparison can be made. Just like the sparks from a fire are the same as the fire in essence, but they're infinitesimally smaller. We are atomic particles of the spiritual potency. Krishna is the supreme origin that Anuchit. He's the supreme. Vibhuchit, sorry, Vibhuchit. We are Anuchit. We are atomic particles. Krishna is Vibhu. He is the complete whole. So just like the sparks from a fire, a spark can ignite a whole blaze that could even incinerate the whole world if it touched the dry grass, etc. It has the same potency, but it's infinitesimally smaller. Like as another example of taking a spoonful of water from the ocean. The spoonful of water is exactly the same constitution as the ocean, but it's the difference is in its quantity. It's very, very infinitesimal, small. It's so simple philosophy, really. If it wasn't simple, it wouldn't be the absolute truth. It's not, it's only complex if you're fighting about it. But if you're accepting it, it's the most simple, conclusive truths for the consciousness. It's like we get bathed in this nectar of the absolute reality. And the soul is so relieved. Consciousness is the soul, the symptom of soul is consciousness. So the consciousness is totally bathed in the nectar of the absolute truth when it's revealed to him. This is why reading a shastra like this can be so comforting and so satisfying for the sadhak to absorb himself in. Although innumerable jiva portions emanate from Krishna, he is not diminished by this in the slightest. For this reason, the Vedas have compared the jivas in one respect to sparks emanating from a fire. Yes, the fire doesn't diminish because the sparks emanate out of it. In reality, no adequate comparison can be made. No comparison whether to sparks of a blazing fire, atomic particles within the rays of the sun, or gold produced from powerful mystic jewels is completely appropriate because we're trying to use material words to describe a transcendental situation. We're limited. We don't have the vocabulary, but we're getting something of a focus. What's it called? Saki Chandranaya, where if you want to see a certain star that is very small, you look to the higher, the more bright star, and then you say, oh, it's close to this star. This is the philosophy of Saki Chandranaya. Or looking to the moon. Where is the moon? Oh, look between those branches of the tree. There it is. So you're getting some indication by these material words and language. Some indication is there. When we chant nicely, when we chant without offenses, when we actually act on these teachings of trying to become detached from this material world, then mercy will flow from that quarter, from that son of Krishna, from that supreme entity. Mercy will come in the consciousness to understand, to appreciate it more deeply, to realize it, to have realization. We want vigyan, not gyan. We want realization of these truths. What's the point of gyan? There's so many gyanis. We need gyan to purify our ignorance, that avidya. But really the jiva should be hankering for this vigyan, this realization of these truths. This is why we chant. We want to have direct perceptive realization. The true nature of the jiva is easily revealed in the heart, but only when the mundane conception of these comparisons is given up. That's basically what I just said, isn't it?
Yes.
When we can't attain it through mundane language and words. We can only attain it through our diligent practice and our consciousness is becoming linked with the divine consciousness. We are Vibhinamsa. Vibhinamsa is the terminology that we're familiar with. Separated. Vibhin means separated. Angsa. Separated from that supreme Angsi. Krishna is the Angsi, the whole, and we are separated from him. Krishna is infinite spiritual substance. Brihat Chidvastu. So previously he said it was Chidvastu, right, at the top of the other paragraph.
Yes.
Now we're being more educated. No, he's not just Chidvastu, he's Brihat Chidvastu. He's the greatest spiritual entity. See the sequence. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is brilliant. He's not going to just slam it all on our plate at once. He's gradually easing us into these conceptions. Whereas the jivas are infinitesimal spiritual substance, anuchid vastu. The oneness of Krishna and the jivas lies in their spiritual nature, chid dharma. So now we get back to the subject at hand. Sannyasi Thakur is asking about dharma. So now what is the true dharma of the jiva? So the true dharma of the jiva is that transcendental substance in relationship to the supreme, the brihat chid vastu. But they are undoubtedly different as well. That's essential to appreciate. Achintya, Veda, Abhed, Tattva. One and simultaneously different. The Advaita school says there's no difference, ultimately. Therefore, they are Mayavads. The Brahmavad view is to understand a supreme Ishvara, but that supreme Ishvara has also manifested from the Brahman. So that Brahman is greater than Ishvara. This is like the Devas. They believe that Vishnu has manifested from that Brahman. These are subtleties that are helpful to appreciate the whole. But they are undoubtedly different as well, because their natures are complete and incomplete respectively. Who feels complete? I bet if I asked 2,000 people who actually sincerely feels complete, I don't think many could actually raise their hands and say. That would be an Atmarama, someone who is fully satisfied. That ultimately is a Mahabhagavat, who's completely, even a Mahabhagavat is not complete in his seva attitude to his guru. My Guru Dev used to say that he never feels that he's satisfying his guru sufficiently, because otherwise then he would stop trying to please. The energy, the dynamic of enthusiasm and greed to please guru would be reduced if you suddenly thought, yes, I've reached that place of satisfaction, I've done so much seva. We never feel like that. Krishna is the eternal Lord of the Jivas, and the Jivas are Krishna's eternal servants. Now we're coming to understand something of Sambandha, the relationship between these two Vastus, the Jiva and Krishna. This interrelationship is natural. This is a big point. It's natural. That means it's the condition of the heart. You can't force the heart to love something, because the ultimate consideration is based on affection. This is where it's principled. It's the love region that is going to connect you with the Lord. It's the love that you have towards your spiritual master that will connect you to Krishna. It's that transcendental affection that is going to connect us to Krishna. That love is not by the mind, not by Gyan. Gyan will not connect us. Gyan will purify us to a great degree and can help us along the road and clear the avidya. But Gyan ultimately is just like a signpost pointing to where is the truth. But we have to go to that place and have realization, make it a reality by connecting in service, because love, we've said so many times, is the symptom of service. Service is the symptom of love. If you love somebody, if you love anything, you will serve them naturally. If you love your dog or your cat or your husband, wife, children, country, anything, you will render service in that direction. So service is the symptom of love. Krishna is the supreme ruler, and the jivas are ruled. Krishna is the observer, and the jivas are observed. Krishna is the complete whole, and the jivas are poor and insignificant. Krishna is the possessor of all potency, and the jivas are devoid of potency. Therefore, the eternal swabhav, or dharma, of the jiva is Krishna Das. eternal servants and obedience to Krishna. Very simple analogy of the hand. What is the dharma of the hand? Is to serve the body. That's its function. That is where the hand is going to find satisfaction when it's serving the body. If the hand decides, I want to be independent from the body and enjoy myself, why is this body getting all the pleasure? Why can't I get some pleasure? Then it divorces itself from the body. It cuts itself off. What will happen? It'll just shrivel and be useless and ineffective for anything. And that is exactly like us. As soon as we separate ourselves from the service of the Lord directly, we just become useless in this world. But the illusion is so thick that we act, because Krishna has arranged it this way, that we actually think, yes, I'm getting some pleasure, this jad anand, this dull material pleasure. And we keep trying for that. It's like the analogy is given in the 7th canto of the Jiva being chased by the tiger, and he falls into a dark well, and he catches hold of the 2 branches, and below him he sees all venomous, poisonous snakes in the dry well, and above him he sees the face of the tiger, and he's holding on to these 2 branches. One is a black branch and one is a white branch, and there's 2 rats. They start to eat at these branches. This is the analogy of day and night. But when he fell in and caught these branches, a little bit of honey started dripping from a hive that was in that tree, and it came right past his tongue, and he sticks his tongue out and tastes the honey, and for a fraction of a moment he thinks, now I'm happy. But look at his dilemma. There's a tiger above, his time is being eaten by these rats, he's got danger below. Where is there any cause for happiness? It's danger. But he's thinking momentarily, this is Maya. This is the nature of the hand divorces itself from the body, and for some moments it thinks it's getting some pleasure with that independence from the whole. But how quickly is that terminated by the conflicting misery? I'll read that last sentence again. Therefore, the eternal swabhav or dharma of the jiva is Krishna das, eternal service and obedience to Krishna. That little paragraph we've just read is so phenomenal. I mean, every single sentence is like a power pack. You can read it again and again to get confirmed of our position in relationship to the supreme position. Because this is always our difficulty. Even when you start to chant a few nice rounds, you'll get some pride straight away. Oh, I'm chanting so nicely. We'll start to understand a little bit of, oh, I can understand Jaiva Dharma. Oh, I can, it's always this I becomes prominent. This pride must be purified. And Guru and Vaishnavas can really help. That's why we need this association. We need association in our lives. Otherwise, this pride will take us, and we won't even know it's taken over us. It'll lead us into all dangerous kind of situations. Krishna is endowed with unlimited potencies, his shaktis. His complete potency, Purna Shakti, is perceived in the manifestation of the spiritual world, Chit Jagat. Who is that supreme Shakti that is personified? It's Sri Radha. Sri Radha is that supreme potency that even has the ability to control Krishna. We were saying yesterday, I was describing to you, Krishna's Radharani's fragrance bewilders Krishna. Krishna is bewildering the whole world by the sound of his flute, and yet the sound of Radharani's ankle bells bewilder him. So this is a remarkable phenomenon, that Krishna is the origin of Shakti, and yet the Shakti has the ability to control Krishna. Why? Because of what we just said, through her love. Aradhana means that one who has the most worship for Krishna, the most love for Krishna. The deepest attraction to Krishna is Radha. Adhika, that means someone who is beyond the best in their ability to please Krishna, to satisfy Krishna. Radhika. Similarly, his Tatashta Shakti or marginal potency is observed in the manifestation of the jivas. A special potency acts in assembling the finite world. Apurna Jagat. This is the Apurna, not Purna. Purna means like we have the Purnima. That's full. Apuna means not full. Jagat means the material world. Means what?
World.
World, yes. And this potency is known as Tatastha Shakti. The action of the marginal potency is to create an entity, Vastu, which exists between the animate objects, Chidvastu, and inanimate objects, Achidvastu. This is the purpose of Tatastha. It has actually the ability to go between two, the spirit and matter. This had to be manifested for the material world to have existence. There can be no existence if there's no connection between the spirit and matter. So it's this Tatastha Shakti that creates the connection between the spirit and matter. We are living that. We are that marginal energy. The action of the marginal potency is to create an entity Vastu which exists between the animate objects Chidvastu and inanimate objects Achidvastu, and which can maintain a relationship with both the spiritual and material worlds. Purely transcendental entities are by nature quite the opposite to inanimate objects, and therefore have no connection whatsoever with them. The pure devotee actually doesn't have any connection with matter because he has no attachment to matter. He will interact with matter for the sake of service, but in his transcendental state of consciousness, he has no connection. What's that? Tasmat Guru Prapadyeta Jignashu Shreyan Uttamam Shabde Pray Tanishnantam Brahmani Upashamashrayam. These are the three descriptions of a pure devotee. He is understanding all Shastra, he's fully realized in Shastra, and the last one, he's completely detached utterly from matter. He has no attachment to matter whatsoever because he knows there's no happiness in this material world. Why should we be attached to this material world? If I understand I'm spirit, then we want that spiritual bliss which is in service to the Supreme Spirit. And the spirit realized soul realizes that he cannot enjoy matter. Matter can't provide a happiness for the soul because it's matter, because it's temporary, and therefore have no connection whatsoever with them. Although the jiva is an animate spiritual particle, he is capable of a relationship with inanimate matter due to the influence of Aishi Shakti. This Aishi Shakti is the same as Tatastha Shakti. This Aishi Shakti is the spiritual Shakti, is the spiritual world. He is capable of a relationship with, due to the influence of Aishi, the divine potency. That is what this Aishi Shakti is, which is known as the Tatastha Shakti, this borderline condition. Oh. So we're going to stop here. Tomorrow we'll describe more what is this Tatastha Shakti. So are we gathering it comfortably with everything? Not anything? We're in process of realization of these truths, but at least if we catch the parameters of the truth that is being presented, even intellectually, academically, we can catch that. These notes, I promise you, are really helpful. I would advise you to hold on to them and examine them closely. But we are praying for realization of these truths, not simply scholastic understanding or ability or academic or something. It's not in the intellect. And in the heart of it, it's in the realm of affection and love for that Supreme Lord. We went over this topic, but we'll have to go it again because it's so important to appreciate where are we in the in the world of energies. Who are we? We are Antaranga Shakti. but we're also influenced towards Bahiranga. We're marginal. We're in this Tatashta. There's the internal energy and the external energy. And Krishna wanted an entity that could relate to both of those energies. So the Jiva was manifested from the Tatashta region. So I said yesterday that Tatashta is not a geographical location. It's a state of consciousness, marginal. And we're in that state of consciousness constantly. I said also yesterday how it's not a historic decision that we made to come into this world, but it's a ever-present decision that we're experiencing daily. We want to do this, which is towards Krishna, and then again, we're oppressed by the delusion of this world, and we get influenced by Maya, and we neglect that service to Krishna again and again. So we're oscillating. So this is causing great disturbance to the consciousness to remain steady in his progress forward. But gradually, with the purity of the heart and the chanting and the mercy of Guru and the mercy of all these personalities that, like we've been describing, we are hungry for mercy, that kripa, to take us forward. So now, halfway down, page 9, page 12, yes. Sorry, page 12. Yes, we're going to describe the Tatashta Shakti. I'll read the sentence before this last paragraph. Although the Jiva is an animate spiritual particle, he is capable of a relationship with inanimate matter due to the influence of Aishi Shakti, a divine potency which is known as the Tatastha Shakti. So yes, we are capable of a relationship with the Supreme Lord, but this influence of inanimate matter, these are all lessons that we've been hearing for so many years. But how much realized are we in these topics? How much have we realized these topics? That's why we need to hear them repeatedly. Because in the heat of the moment, in the cold winter morning when you're taking a shower, do we know we're not the body when we're jumping in there? And in the heat of summer, do we know we're not the body when we're experiencing so much oppression from the elements, etc.? So in all of these cases, we need to be constantly reminding ourselves of this predicament. We are in a predicament, but we can purify this predicament and come out by understanding these topics clearly. So the boundary region between land and the water of a river is known as a tata, or shore. This tata may be considered to be both land and water. In other words, it is situated in both. We see on the beach, on the shoreline, where is the edge of the beach? It's changing every second. It's moving. It's fluctuating. Sometimes it's covered. Sometimes it's not covered. So it's not defined. It's not definitive. So this Tatashta is like that. We are fluctuating between the two states of consciousness. The divine Isa Shakti, which is situated in the border region, upholds the properties of both land and water, as it were, in one existential entity. So we are that existential entity. We are that existential entity that is able to have these two energies manifesting simultaneously. But our path is very clear. We are seeing the deformity of Maya, and we're seeing the beauty of Krishna consciousness, and we're working towards that path. The Jiva's nature is spiritual, but still his composition is such that he can become controlled by Jaiva Dharma, the inert nature. Yes, so essentially we are spirit. We should always remember that. In every single instance, especially at some point we are all going to die. Are we going to be present-minded sufficiently in our consciousnesses to be appreciating I am spirit? Now my body is deteriorating and dying, even though it perhaps is bringing so much pain. The temperature rises to such a high degree when we leave the body. The mind becomes bewildered. but have we practiced sufficiently in this birth to maintain? So that point of affection, and how does that point of affection begin to manifest? By appreciating the enormity of the affection between Radha and Krishna. When we meditate on the sweetness and speciality of their relationship and how astonishing is the love that Radha has for Krishna. It's beyond words, this chamatkara, astonishing, completely vichitrata, this achintya, the height and depth of this love. So we are witnessing this. So now in my own vision as a conditioned jiva, how can I bring my heart to, at minimum, serve Sri Radhika in her service to Krishna by hearing more and more of the sweetness and speciality of the pastimes, especially all pastimes in Vrindavan, of course. When we hear these leelas, they can melt the heart. We must hear the leelas, not simply gyan, not simply be packed up with philosophical conclusions, etc. I've said so many times, my Gurudev used to say that gyan is like the horse and the leela is like the rider. We want to hear repeatedly about the loving pastimes between Radha and Krishna and the Sakhis, and especially between the Manjaris and Sri Radhika, because this is the gift that Mahaprabhu is bestowing on the jivas at this particular time, this Swabhakti Shriyam. This is the gift. So always we're focusing and remembering this. The pastimes in particular, and cultivating a mood of affection and love by service. When we perform service, you can't perform loving service unless you have a loving relationship with the object, can you? If you're doing your bhoga offering, but you're not feeling any affinity with the Lord, you're not it's just like a ritual. It's like a smarta Brahman. You're just doing it, ringing the bell, chanting the mantras, but not really considering what you're doing. Many times the devotees become almost abstract, almost impersonal, because they're not considering the object of their worship sufficiently. So it's very important to be taking stock of my focus. My Gurudev used to say at least 5 times a day we should assess the strength of my devotion. Am I really performing devotional service? Am I becoming more devoted to the object of my attraction? Or is it just a ritualistic thing? Of course, initially it is ritualistic because I don't know anything else. So I'm just doing what I have, the instructions that I have respect for those masters who are teaching me this. So I'm doing it like that. But at some point that has to transform into a reality. We talked about vigyan, not just gyan. It has to translate into vigyan, where I'm experiencing direct perception. Pratyakshabagamam dharmyam. This is described in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This knowledge can be perceived by direct perception. So we have to bring it to this place to be a reality. Otherwise it's just mental and just gyan and becomes dry. The jiva's nature is spiritual, but still his composition is such that he can become controlled by Jad Dharma. That means dull Dharma, the inert nature. Therefore, the Bada Jiva, conditioned soul, is not beyond all connection with matter, unlike the jivas in the spiritual domain. The jivas in the spiritual domain, it's described in chapter 16, don't even know Maya exists. But we do have this attraction because we're encased in these material bodies, and unless we're finding bliss in our service towards the Lord, we will for sure seek bliss in the material world. So we must keep up the steam, so to speak. Nonetheless, he is distinct from dull matter because of his animate spiritual nature. Since the Jiva is by nature different from both the purely spiritual entities and dull matter, he is classified as a separate principle. So it's not really an easy situation to be in, to be a Jiva in the conditioned world, because like we're stuck between these two abilities to associate with spirit, and because I am spirit, and the fact that I've forgotten that nature, and to be attracted towards the material nature. It bangs us around from side to side. We have to be very careful and very serious and very determined to leave that illusory world of pleasure behind and seek the pleasure of Krishna carefully. Therefore, the eternal distinction between Bhagavan and the Jiva must be accepted. So, this distinction, I'll just read more. Bhagavan is the supreme ruler of Maya, his external potency which creates bewilderment, which is under his full control. The Jiva, on the other hand, may under certain circumstances be controlled by Maya, for he is subject to its influence. Hence, these three principles, Bhagavan, the Jiva, and Maya, are real, paramartik, satya, and eternal. So only these three principles are vastus, Bhagavan, the Jiva, and Maya. These are the three vastus. Of these three, Bhagavan is the supreme eternal principle, is the foundation of the other principles. The following statement of Sri Katha Upanishad 2.2.13 confirms this. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. He is the supreme eternal amongst all eternals, and the fundamental sentient being amongst all sentient beings. How wonderful to know that conclusively, that he is the supreme eternal. Whatever sort of Maya I get into, he's still going to be the supreme eternal. And I must keep remembering him to save me from this attraction to the illusory energy. The Jiva is by nature both an eternal servant of Krishna and a representation of his marginal potency. This demonstrates that the Jiva is distinct from Bhagavan, yet at the same time is not separate from him. He is therefore a manifestation that is both different and non-different, a Beda Prakash. The Jiva is subject to domination by Maya, whereas Bhagavan is the controller of Maya. Herein lies the eternal distinction between the Jiva and Bhagavan. On the other hand, the Jiva is, by his constitutional nature, a transcendental entity, Chid Vastu, and Bhagavan is also by nature Chid Vastu. Moreover, the Jiva is a special potency of Bhagavan. Herein lies the eternal non-distinction between these two. Where eternal distinction and non-distinction are found at one and the same time, eternal distinction takes prominence. Very obvious. We gave the example yesterday. We're talking about a spoonful of water from the ocean. The distinction between the quantity of a spoonful of water and the vast ocean is just enormous. But the quality of the water in this teaspoon is the same as the quality in the ocean. This is the condition of the Jiva. Now, just for a moment, we can turn ahead to page 346. And you see down the bottom of 346, this is opening out and explaining more the
Similarity.
non-difference between Krishna and the Jiva. First, the similarity, yes. So the question that Brajana is asking, what is the difference between Ishvara and the Jiva? Babaji, first you should understand the non-difference between Ishvara and the Jiva. And after that, I'll explain their eternal difference. Ishvara is the embodiment of knowledge, Gyan Swarup, the knower, Nata Swarup, one who considers or reflects, Manta Swarup, and the enjoyer, Bhaktri Swarup. He is self-effulgent, Swaprakash, and he also illuminates others, Paraprakash. He has his own desires, Ichamayi, and he is the knower of all, Ketra Gyan. The Jiva too is the form of knowledge, the knower, and the enjoyer. He too is self-effulgent, and he illuminates others. For example, if you're feeling very happy and joyful, you can make others feel happy and joyful and illuminated. You have your own aura, effulgence. Krishna has his aura and effulgence. You have the propensity to enjoy. Krishna has the propensity to enjoy. We can reflect and consider mantra, and Krishna also reflects. We know something of our own individual bodies. Krishna, but the distinction is that Krishna knows all bodies. This is the distinction. So there's 9 of them actually altogether, and they're very, very helpful to commit to memory, to actually know this. Gyan Sarup, Nata Sarup, Bhakti Sarup, Mantra Sarup, Paraprakash, Swaprakash, Ketra Gyan, Ichamai, and Shuddha Deha, a pure spiritual body. We have a pure spiritual body. Krishna has a pure spiritual body. That's the one that's missing from here. But we both have spiritual bodies. These are the similarities. So Babaji is expert. He's explaining the similarities first, then he's going to accentuate or make the distinction the most prominent. The Jiva too is the form of knowledge, the knower, the enjoyer. He too is self-effulgent and he illuminates others. And he too has desires and is the knower of his own field. From this perception, there is no difference between them. However, Ishvara is omnipotent, and by dint of his omnipotency, he is the basis of all these qualities, which are present in him in full. These qualities are also present in the atomic Jiva, but only in a minute degree. Thus, the nature and form of Ishvara and the Jiva are eternally different from each other, because one is complete and the other is minute. And at the same time, there is a lack of distinction between Ishvara and Jiva, because the similarity between their qualities. So this is a place where you can mark in your personal indexes, whatever, and page 346, that illuminates what we're talking about now. By the way, there is an extensive index in the back of the book, as well as 3 comprehensive glossaries. As well, you can make your own index as you come upon something that you find is relevant and pertinent. You can write it down for yourself in the back so you can have quick access to all these truths, because so many profound truths are here, and that just comes times in the our daily tasks when we just want a specific truth so we can catch it and grab it. The Nitya Dharma of the Jiva is servitorship to Krishna. This is the big distinction. When he forgets this, he is subjugated to the tyranny of Maya, and from that very moment, he becomes diverted from Krishna. The fall of the Jiva does not take place within the context of material time. This is what I was saying before. It's not a historic fall that we had. It's a continuous. Non-material time has no material past, present, and future. We are in material time, so we're trying to put a point. When did I make that? But actually it was made in the eternal realm. And then, but we are continually making that decision to turn away from Krishna.
We were eternally Baddha.
Yes, we're eternally Baddha until we're not eternally Baddha. This is a wonderful appreciation. We are Baddha Jiva, but there will become a time when we lose that conditioning and we embrace Krishna fully, and then we are no longer eternally bound. So in a sense, it seems like eternal because it's from time immemorial that we have been bound. And while we are bound, it seems eternal. But there is an end to the bondage, without a doubt, when we connect in love, service to Krishna.
So once when Baddha Jivi becomes eternally liberated,
Of course.
so he becomes Nitya Siddha?
Yes. Yes, eternally liberated. Like we have the sadhana siddha gopis. We have those nitya siddha gopis, and then we have the sadhana siddha gopis also. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
That you can be bound eternally, and then you're not bound eternally. So the word eternal isn't actually fully eternal, because there is a limitation on the eternal. If you get free, that's the point. That depends on our own responsibility. It's not a magic thing going to happen. Of course, many magical things will happen by the Lord's mercy. But in principle, the jiva has to take responsibility for that decision to fully die to live, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Maharaj said. Just drop the whole material conception completely. Die to live. It is meaningless. That place of refuge we keep taking, that security of my mind, my body, my family, my country, my home, everything. This is all ephemeral. It's all nimitic.
Maharaj, I have one more question. Means on this point, and you were talking about how do we are saying that we are not this material we are chit vastu and not this, and how do we implement that in our daily life? So we keep getting thoughts about which is not related to Krishna. So how do we deal with that?
It's a process. It's a process. It's a process. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said the first point of bhajan, now think about this, is patience. We have to have patience with ourselves. We have to have patience with the length of time it's going to take to purify our dirty conditioned consciousnesses from billions of years in different bodies, etc. They have to be purified. That takes time. These distracting thoughts that come in for our own sense gratification, exploitation of the world, they will come in. But what sort of determination am I having to leave those aside?
So, like a sadhak, how does he deal with that? Like sometimes
He
it's
takes
frustrating.
shelter of his guru. I can remember once having a most amazing dream about my Gurudev, and I was standing with my Gurudev. And the whole time I was standing with him, I was aware that negative thoughts were coming into my mind at the same time as I was standing with him. And those negative thoughts took the form of like black crows with very sharp razor hoods on their heads. And they were like attacking me, attacking my consciousness while I was standing with my Gurudev. And my Gurudev was pushing them all back as they were coming. He was deflecting them all. And I was feeling wonderful because none of these black thoughts were actually allowed to enter by the mercy of my Guru. So the answer to your question, Gokul, is the mercy of Guru is going to be very instrumental in this, keeping these dark negative thoughts aside. But as we progress, Guru is not constantly going to be there, deflect. We have to grow up and we have to deflect those thoughts ourselves. That means we have to make a decision that we don't want to enjoy those thoughts because we have those thoughts because we get some taste from them. That's why we have the thoughts. It comes to us, it's attracting to us because we want those thoughts. So when I decide, no, I don't want to go that journey anymore, that genuinely at the very core of my heart isn't even a smell, not even a scent of desire for my own pleasure in this world. How long will that take?
So we don't take the onus of those thoughts. We just neglect it.
It's like if you see a bird fly in the sky and it goes out of your vision, let it go. Let it come in and let it go.
Okay.
Let it come in and let it go. Don't grab it, play with it, taste it, relish it. Otherwise, we're doomed. Let it go when the thought comes in. So easy to say these words.
Yeah.
Sitting here and saying these words is easy. But the reality of this is
It takes time and
time and practice. It's the practice becoming serious. To know that this world is temporary. It really is temporary. It's of a lower state of consciousness. It's not a fit place for a gentleman to live in this world. There's nothing of value in this world. Nothing. That means all my previous conditioning has to be left aside. It's meaningless. And this present time in the global arena, it's become easier for that. Many hospital practices, for example, the whole medical industry is being revealed as a bunch of charlatans. This is the truth. You go to hospital to die, basically, these days, or to give the doctors a livelihood. You don't go there to get cured necessarily. That's just one example. Then there are many other examples, like they talk about fake news, etc. It's like everything we receive from the media, it's got a twist on it. It's all in someone else's interest. So it makes it very easy for the sensitive practicing devotee to reject all of those things because they're so false. Why should I listen to any broadcast about what's happening in the world when I'm understanding all of the broadcast speakers are all false? They all have an agenda. So it's like the very core of everything. So it's helpful for the devotees to reject more and more of conditioned life and these boundaries. We have to pray, Gokul. Yes. Pray. Okay, I'm determined to finish this chapter today. So let me just read to the end. Accordingly, the words Anadi Bahya Mukh are used, meaning that the jiva has been diverted since time without beginning. That's what we're talking about. That's why we're called Bada Jivas. From the moment of this diversion and the jiva's entry into Maya, his Nitya Dharma becomes perverted. I'm saying that everything that we have faith in, the Dharma in this world, is perverted. And because of the situation on the planet now, it's more easy to see that because it's become so accelerated. The sinful acts on the planet have increased. So it's easier to see them and recognize them. The debauchery, like they talk about, what's this transgender and stuff like that. It's just so crazy. I mean, you don't have to be such an intelligent person to realize how mad things have become. So how easy is it for us to reject that whole package of material aspirations and life? We can sit separately from it and we can fully take shelter of the Lord. It's to our advantage. This is the darkest age of Kali, and Mahaprabhu has descended in this age to give Raganuga Bhakti, which is phenomenal. Now he's giving us an increased support and incentive to take deeper shelter because the world is just collapsing in such a ridiculous way. You don't even have to be intelligent to realize how stupid it all is. Entry into night. His Nitya Dharma becomes perverted. Therefore, by the association of Maya, the jiva develops nishag, an acquired nature. Never forget this word. It's beautiful. Nishag, acquired nature, which thus facilitates the display of his temporary function and disposition known as Naimitic Dharma. This Naimitic Dharma is going to be talked about many times. Third chapter is Naimitic Dharma should be rejected. Relinquished, yes. The Nitya Dharma, eternal function, is one, indivisible, and faultless in all different situations. Now he's addressing Sannyasi Thakur's question. He asked him originally, what is true Dharma? Why are there so many interpretations of Dharma? Now he's saying that true Dharma is faultless. It's without any blemish. Nitya Dharma, eternal function, is one, indivisible, and faultless in all different situations. But the Naimitic Dharma, temporary function, assumes many different forms when seen in diverse circumstances and when it is described in various ways by men of divergent opinions. We were saying yesterday, when you have these different traditions in other countries, you have different climates, different foods, different dress, different civilization, the culture, everything in. So they've wound their particular set of values and principles around those influences, and they've left the original Dharma, and they become influenced just by the external aspect of it. Therefore, they're calling their religion, oh, this is the best, or whatever. And then they fight about each other with each other, which means it can't be really religion. It's not Dharma. It's a big, beautiful point that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is bringing to our attention right at the beginning. What is true Dharma? We need to meditate on these topics deeply. Having spoken thus, Paramahamsa Babaji stopped and began to chant Sri Harinam Japa. Hearing this explanation of spiritual truths, Sannyasi Thakur offered prostrated obeisances and said, Prabhu, I shall deliberate on all these topics today. Tomorrow I shall submit at your lotus feet any questions that may arise. So thus ends the first chapter of Jaiva Dharma. So we'll conclude for today's session and we'll meet on Monday, not tomorrow, and we'll start with chapter 2. The basic thread, the essence has been established in this first chapter. I said previously, my Gurudev has said that out of all these chapters, the first 4 are the most important. Out of the first 4, the first 2. And out of the first 2, the first 1. Everything has been said here. If you read nothing else except this first chapter, you've gone a long way with your spiritual progress, without a doubt. So this chapter is really important to absorb fully. And I think I've explained all the terminologies quite simply, avastu, and what is nishag. It's all explained here very clearly. So I hope you will, if you read those notes that we sent out, they're very comprehensive, very helpful. Okay, so we'll begin chapter 2 next week on Monday. Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gold Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.